We had a message from one of our subscribers asking us, can we please simply explain SMSF investing to them? Fortunately, I have a background in financial planning, even though I'm no longer qualified in that. So I can give you the basic principles of self-managed super funds and super funds in general, and the context of investing in them, as well as investing in property. So first thing to understand is superannuation is a structure. It's a trust. Peter Curry, the individual, is assessed completely different to the super fund of Peter Curry. It's its own entity with its own credit score, with its own serviceability, everything. Now, when people say my super is with Rest, with Australian Super, it's invested in Australian Super, it's invested in Uni Super, the actual details are incorrect. You are not invested in them. A superannuation retail super fund or industry super fund is basically a wrap. Think of it like a menu. When you go to a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, for example, you go to the restaurant, but you're not eating an Italian. You're eating off the menu. So you choose from your pizza, your pasta, or whatever that may be. In the same way, when you go to a super wrap account, you choose from the investment menu. Now, there's different kinds of investments to choose from. There's what's called the diversified portfolios, or the EFTs, or whatever that may be, or SMEs, or whatever that is. So you can actually basically group these different investments according to your risk profile in those managed funds, those mixed managed funds. So if you're conservative, highly conservative, balanced, growth, high growth, it basically means that you are either ultra aggressive, which means you're in property and shares or international shares, or you're ultra conservative and you're in your cash fixed interest accounts. Generally, what happens with most investment accounts, you're gonna find you're gonna have a mix of each. For example, in a balanced portfolio, they might have 70% of your portfolio into growth-based funds. Those growth-based funds are shares and property-based because they have both a yield and a capital growth component. But the thing with those different pools is they go up and down, they're quite cyclical, and there's risk associated to them. So the 30% on the conservative on a balanced fund is just going to go slow and steady up. And the way that's designed to work is during those peak periods of growth, you're doubling the growth. But even though the conservative portion is going slightly higher, slightly slower. But why that's designed to be there is during those down cycles when you're losing money, the conservative portion is designed to offset that. So that's super fund, that's retail super fund. It's irrelevant which trust you're in based on fees, but the reason why you choose one trust over the other is because they have different investment access. So a retail super fund may have access to a specific fund you believe in, like a Rhodes or like a Leg Mesa or a Schroders or something of that nature that your industry super fund does not. You need to speak to a financial advisor because any investment based on how inexpensive it is stupid. You're not going for the cheapest heart surgeon, you're going for the best heart surgeon, right? And even if the facilities inside are cheaper, the investments may not be as top performing, or they may very well be top performing, but it's all based on what your expectations are. The other reason you choose one super fund over the other is the insurance is in there. I know you're saying all insurance are the same. They're not. They have different prices, they have different coverages, and just like banks have different target markets of who they're actually trying to address. Now, where do you go from there compared to a self-managed super fund? First question, is it for everyone? Absolutely not. It does take time, it does take effort, and you do need to have some guidance for it. In the property world, and a self-managed super fund is required. So if you want to get involved in property, you do not have the cash to do so, then you can establish a self-managed super fund if you have a balance of close to 180 to 200, kind of as a minimum basis. You have to have a single contract to buy that property, and that super fund needs to have a bare trust in the name of that property and location. You get a loan against that property. Now, the thing about a loan, it's minimum recourse lending, right? So there's different rules to it, but essentially you need to have a lower LVR to make sure it's stable, because your super fund cannot lose money year on year. It has to be protected. There are so many options and opportunities and things to do with your super fund. I'm an advocate for my own personal position in self-managed super. There are things I can do there that I can't do out. Again, my background's in finance. I live and breathe this stuff. If you can't do it yourself, you get a financial advisor, but it has to be in your best interest. But if I can summarize all that, because there's a lot of information there, it's simply this. There are 3 different kinds of super. Retail, industry, self-managed. Retail is competing with the best investments ideally. That's all subjective. With the best insurance products, subjective again. Industry super is kind of cornering you into going with them because your industry starts you there and you expect to stay there, and they're keeping you there on low fees. And some have some good investments as well. So there's no shade being thrown towards industry super funds. And they're self-managed, which is either for very educated or supported investors or people, I believe, looking to buy a property. I wouldn't be there picking stocks or crypto in my, in my self-managed super fund if I wasn't experienced in doing so and didn't have the time and energy to do that. The last point I want to make about super, so you guys fully understand it, because I want to explain to you what the difference between is your personal situation and your super situation. The highest tax rate of an Australian is 45% in your name. The highest tax bracket for a company is 30%. The tax bracket for a superannuation fund is 15%. And the tax bracket for a retirement funds, which is when you hit preservation age, is 0%, which means this. If I have $2 million in my personal name or $2 million in my super name, you know what? Let's make it more relatable. If I have $300,000 in my super name and $300,000 in my personal name, if I earn a 10% return on each, 10% return on each, so I've made 30 grand here, 30 grand here. In my personal name, I'm only walking away with 60% of that, right? Because the tax is going away. So I'm walking away with whatever it is, 60% of the $30,000 return. That's 3,000 at 10%, 3,000 times 6, $18,000 is what I'm walking away with. If I do it in my super, I'm walking away with a 15% tax cut off that. But here's the most important part. Eventually I will retire and the tax will be 0%. So for me to achieve exactly the same thing, I would have to double my results in my personal name. Double my results in my personal name just to be on par with what the super fund is doing because of the tax vessel. So what is super? It's purely a tax vessel. Now you may say, it's still 67 till I use it. No, there are methods we can use it just a little bit earlier. All right, so first and foremost, why do I use it? Because the cash I have, I don't need more than my food, my mortgage, my car payments. That's it, right? Everything else is going to go to investments anyway, so why not do it in a tax-effective environment? It's limited now because I don't want to go above that $3 million threshold that the government's put in place. So it's limited now. And I don't know if that's passed, by the way. But that's why I use it. Now, when you're getting to your 50s, you should be really working on that, because by the time you get to 60, you have access to something called a transition to retirement strategy, in which case you can take that money out 10% at a time and use it at a tax benefited way. So you're actually paying off your mortgage faster, or growing your wealth faster because you can take out 10% a year, up to 10% a year, and still put money in, saving your fair chunk in tax as well. There are so many methods to use it for. I know I was asked to give a simple explanation of super, but unfortunately, nothing in Australia when it comes to tax or super or structuring is super. But I hope what I've given you is value. Please like, subscribe, and stick around. There's more to come, more information. Ask those questions, and I promise you I'll answer them. Take care.